Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the SHC Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Sisk, and today we'll be featuring a senior consultant aiding the Department of Defense, Trevor Doucet. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the ramifications of AI, the growth experience from graduate school, and what drove him to found the business club here on Spring Hill's campus.
You know, my favorite thing about when I watch podcasts, they're like, "Are we rolling? Are we good?" And like, "Yeah, we could just start here." I love that. Yeah.
We can leave that in.
All right,
let's get it.
Let's do it.
Trevor, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
What brings you to Mobile this time?
So this time and a couple months ago, wedding at Spring Hill, which is just a classic staple. You know, as a student, you saw them all the time. They're kind of in the background, but now I'm just like participating in them. It's just so nice to come back. And then every time I do come back, I have to stop by Yeni Hall because it's just like filled with so many memories. And so it's just a pleasure running into you and Miss Lerviere. Yeah.
Has Yeni changed since you were
Not at all. I mean, Miss Lerviere brought me around and, I saw some paint but just the nostalgic, just aroma and just, there's new furniture in the room and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's just like everything, it's just so special in there to me now. And I feel like walking in as a student, I was just always like, this is the best building on campus. A little biased, but I love it there.
I'd say it is too.
Yeah.
Is it a Spring Hill friend of yours that's getting married?
Yeah, he was actually a fellow accounting major, fellow Delta Chi. He was the president of a fraternity at the time. He played soccer here. And he is a native Mobilian. He went to school at McGill. And I was just enthralled by like his friends. So I was like, I didn't have high school friends like this. I want to be friends with your high school friends. And so now I'm the groomsman with all of his high school friends.
Nice.
And so I'm super stoked. So he'll get married at St. Joe's. And then I think the reception somewhere downtown.
So if you're a groomsman, you definitely made it in that friend group circle.
I did. Yeah, no, I did. So I'm super stoked. Great buddy of mine. He'll definitely be in my wedding one day. So, it's just it's a great friend. A lot of good friends here.
Would you get married at Spring Hill as well?
I really pushed that with my girlfriend, but she's from New York, went to her own liberal arts college. So I don't think it's like resonates the same, but I definitely did push for it. So we'll see, we'll get time.
Are weddings a frequent occurrence at her college as well?
She said there's a couple, but not like Spring Hill. I haven't heard anything like Spring Hill, so.
On the weddings being a staple, I definitely agree. And I heard that if a student goes and crashes one or, goes uninvited, that it's an automatic expulsion.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Because a few times me and my friends have been like, we could so just go in there in suits and get by. But I'm glad I heard that piece of information before trying.
Honestly, you would be surprised how much people like, whether it's the groom or the bride side, you would be like, oh, I don't recognize anyone here. So, I mean, you could get away with it, I'm sure, for a little bit. Yeah.
What brought you to Spring Hill originally?
That's a good question. So I'll answer that with two parts. So why I thought I wanted to go to Spring Hill was actually to play baseball. And it was, I talked to the coach and he said he was going to come down and see me. But this was actually the one day out of a million that actually snowed at Spring Hill's campus. So he didn't come to see. So I had to come and like try out and do the whole thing.
Have you seen that picture of the church with snow on it?
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal picture.
Yeah, so I think it was literally I saw like, oh, the campus is just covered in snow. So I might have been that time, and I was just like, man, how unfortunate of those odds. But yeah, so I came here to play baseball. They offered me a scholarship for academic reasons, and yeah, I mean, you come on the campus, you're like, this is beautiful, and I would love to learn here. I also, my family, they all went to LSU. My grandfather played for LSU. Kind of felt like I was black sheep a little bit. I wanted to go and do something different. Wanted a smaller environment so I could learn more just from like being involved in the campus. So like just Spring Hill at the time, I didn't know much about it, but like it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. So yeah,
I can say the same to mine.
Yeah,
it's just so personalized.
It is. But now, after going here, my answer is a little bit different. I mean, really, like subconsciously, I think just what drove me here was maybe the opportunities to get involved. And so like all the things that I did while I was here was I played baseball. I was on the rugby team. I was junior class president. I ran for president of the school. I was in a fraternity and just made so many best friends along the way. And my counterparts that went to larger universities maybe did one of those things. So the opportunity to do that and try so many different things like is what makes this school so special.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You were here from 2014 to 2018?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
So pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
I hear it's a different place.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, every time I come back, I don't really see like what the the student life is, but yeah, I mean, it was so much fun, and I just felt like it was just so community based, and everyone was involved, and I really got to know like everyone, and I think that was like, I don't know. So that's another thing, just the network that you get coming out of here. It's just so special. But yeah, I'm sure it was a different time.
Did you know Martine Day? I think he graduated in 19.
Maybe it rings a bell. Was he also in student government? I think maybe.
Possibly. He was Sigma Chi in pre-med.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, yeah, I mostly stuck in the business track. Didn't veer off that much, but yeah, definitely rings a bell for sure.
Me and his brother kind of came here together.
Oh, cool.
And, we're family friends.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Small world.
What would you say your biggest takeaways or learning lessons are from your time here as a student?
Man, I don't know. I think really what set me up for success later in life was the fact that I put myself in so many uncomfortable environments where like, oh, I never did student government. Oh, like I don't really know what rugby is, but I go play it. So I think it was just the willingness to overcome being uncomfortable and putting myself in a position to like try and fail. And you get that at such a high frequency at Spring Hill.
Right.
And that plays such an important role, which you don't realize, but like, I wouldn't be where I am today without those opportunities. So
kudos to you for doing rugby. I did one game against Auburn last year.
Oh man.
Sticking to basketball and track.
I think the thing is when you play those bigger universities, because we played Louisiana Tech, all like ex-football players. And so I broke my nose actually a couple of times. And that's when I kind of ended my career. I was like, yeah, this is probably not the sport for me. So.
Did you play in high school?
No, I played football. I was a quarterback in high school, did all of that. So I was like, oh, I think it's kind of similar to football. I really missed football. And no, not similar at all.
Where are you from?
Louisiana. Lafayette, Louisiana, specifically. Yeah.
Louisiana's a huge football state.
I know. I did get an opportunity to go play football in Arkansas at a smaller college. So I was like, man, did I miss out? Was that supposed to be my track? So I was like, maybe if I try rugby, I can find that love in sport again. But it's just such a different culture and just attitude that I just was like not used to, but definitely appreciated from the outside.
Yeah. Tell me about your education post SHC.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of when I went to Spring Hill, I just was like, I feel like this is it. I did what I wanted to do academically. And then I just saw, so many people above me in different classes, like go to Georgetown and go to different institutions. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They're kind of getting a second shot at college, which is very quick and had such a good time. So, and at the time I really wanted to go to school in DC. I thought it'd be cool to like, live in a bigger city, kind of get some exposure to just people around the world. And yeah, so I got my MBA there around 2020. So I did some COVID schooling and graduated in 22. And then now I'm getting my master's in computer science. And so that's a whole thing. So I'm doing that through Tulane while I'm working. So,
wow. What are you doing for work right now?
So I just finished up at Johns Hopkins Medicine. So I worked in business development. So basically we'd work on just building different, businesses for the institution, whether that's like, a dermatology practice, or if we wanted to open up a new service line for cancer, we were kind of like the data force behind that and making, decisions on go or not go. And then now I just got a new job with Guidehouse. And so I'll be like working with security through the DoD and doing a lot of data automation for the government.
So all federal stuff.
Yeah. But if you just look at my resume entirety, I was in oil and gas, and then I was in public affairs advertising, and then I went to like straight into medicine, and now I'm in federal space. So like I've definitely like hopped around a bit, but like the focus on data has always been like, my
analytics,
my niche. Yeah.
Did you plan to go to Washington for a federal political job?
That's funny. I got contacted by a headhunter, and he asked me like what I wanted to do, because I just wanted to go to grad school, but I had to do a little bit of work before. I think it's good to like get some work experience before you go.
Industry experience.
Exactly. And I was like, he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I just want to wear a suit to work, like whatever job that is, and just kind of feel important. Like that's what I want to do. I can't say that the federal work and healthcare is the most exciting, but it definitely feels like I'm contributing the most value as far as like to society and everything like that. So definitely I'm like proud of what I do. But yeah, it's been an adjustment from like starting off in oil and gas for sure. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you've moved across several industries in a short time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been fun. It's been challenging. I think it's tough because if you really want to go up the ladder one day, you're going to have to specialize in whatever industry. So I think, so much of my time at Spring Hill, like that's the counter thing to like trying so many things. Like, you got to be a master of something. So I think I'm just like trying to find out what that is, but like holding on to like data science and analytics is like my crutch to like get in the door. So it's been working so far.
How much of that analytics did BizWaz give you?
Funny story. So sorry. And I might be outing myself a little bit, but I think moments like these, like you're embarrassed at the time, but like now I'm proud of, kind of the opportunity I did. So I was never a math person. I always did really bad in math. I had to take pre-calc over the summer here, and then business calc, I just dropped it. Just like didn't make no sense to me. For business though, you have to have like some kind of business calc to graduate out of the, the college or some, relevant course. I was like, I just can't. It's just too much. At the time, I just wasn't very confident in my skills there. But the alternative was like the big data analytics class that Ani offers. And so for me, I was like, man, I know that's like one of the hardest classes that I've heard of, like taking for a senior. And I know that you kind of have to have a good academic standing to kind of get in that class. And so I took his class prior. I opened up an Excel workbook and I just looked at the blank screen. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. This is like crazy.
That's the exact picture of me in that class.
Yeah, terrifying. And so I had to go and ask for his blessing to be in the class. I was like, hey, like, I know like I've probably didn't do so well in the class before this, but like I'm kind of out of options here. I'd love to take your class. And he looked at me and he said, you show up every day and you try your hardest and don't miss one class or you're probably done. And I was like, okay, you got it. So that was my opportunity. Years later, obviously now I have like a career with data. I messaged him. I just said, hey, like, I don't know if you remember this day, but like that's the day that changed my life. And I just can't thank you enough for like giving me that opportunity. So yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
He's a super hard teacher, but the underlyingness of it is that he's that hard because he truly cares.
Yeah.
And you don't find that in every teacher.
No. And I think he attracts students that want to learn and appreciate that from him. I think at the time, studying marketing, I really just like, I wanted to like really focus on the other things college offered, but that was my first dive into like, oh, this is academics. This is what it's like to like really like master something. So it definitely was a challenge, but yeah, I got by with a B and, didn't really look back. So yeah.
Do you feel like you've got a really good grasp for the analytical side now?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I feel like it's one of those things that if you know something about a subject, you realize how much you don't know.
Yes, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Exactly.
That's really what I discovered with this podcasting. It's like, oh yeah, we just sit at a table and talk with an iPhone in the middle. Nope. Yeah,
and there's so many buzzwords, as I'm sure you know, and so many different ways to look at something. Like whether it's like AI or data science, it's like, well, what does that actually mean? So I think building the skills, building the knowledge of the algorithms to really like accomplish and proudly say that you can accomplish those things, but realizing that like there's always gonna be something better than you. So you need to bring to the table something else. And so that's why I liked getting my MBA, because I'm like, okay, I really focused on building teams and focus on networking. So like I might not be the best computer scientist or the best business guy, but I'm a little bit of both. And I think that kind of makes me unique in that space.
What's the anticipated impact of AI in the analytics space?
That's a good question. I think just developers in general, might be a little nervous because like you ask ChatGPT, like, hey, can you spit out this code? And they'll do it automatically. That being said, we're just becoming a more technological world. And so I think becoming yourself more technological isn't a bad deal. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, yes, AI is coming, but if you can get ahead of it in some capacity or find a way to do things that AI might not do as well, like podcasting, then I think like you're in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah.
Have you started implementing AI in your work?
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure what the job, with ChatGPT, if it's allowed. And I know a lot of different companies are very sensitive with their data, and they might have their own version of like a large language model. But the thing is, those things like kind of are built off of data and need data to operate. And so they're maybe not as good. And I'm actually in my computer science class. I just took my AI final this past week past. And so,
Congrats.
yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, it was a lot of stress along the way. Um, but yeah, it's, I think as long as you understand that like AI is only good as the people that are producing it, you realize we have a long way to go for sure. There's a lot of things until AI can start creating itself. I think we're in a good spot for society.
Do you fear when it can start creating itself?
Yeah, I think that if you just look at just what the future of time might be with just like, something really scary when I was taking my intro class to computer science, my teacher said we just hit the beginning era of AI. And I think that comment really resonated with me because that's such a creepy, because you just think about different eras, okay, of the internet and like now it's AI. So I think it's going to be very helpful and it's kind of cute in some aspects, but like, yeah, the ramifications and the ability of what it's going to produce, we don't know yet,
Not at all.
Yeah.
What would you forecast the impact on human life and humanity?
That's a good question. So, actually for one of our assignments, we had to talk about the ethics of the trolley problem. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Okay. And we studied this in business ethics as well. But, essentially what it is, it's like, okay, you have a trolley and it's heading to 5 people that are strapped to the track. Okay. And so you can either pull the lever and it'll go and kill 1 person, or don't do anything and it'll kill 5 people. So this was the prompt. And then they had AI also answer it. But I'd love to hear what your perspective would be on that question. Well, what do you do?
Well, 5 is greater than 1.
Right. That would be my thought. But when I was looking at the discussion board, I would say it was 70-30, like 30 being, 5's greater than 1. So you pull the track. A lot of people just said, don't do anything. And so if you think about the students that are like in this class, these are people that are going to be, building AI and the logic and the biases into the programs. So that's the scary part, is that the people buying it, you don't know what their logical thinking is of like how to value human life. And that's going to be built into AI. So that's a little bit of like the worrisome fact.
Damn.
I know. Wild, right?
I've been getting into Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism.
Okay.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the key principles is just really staying the course.
Yeah.
So I wonder if those people answering that just, or were thinking deeper about it, or just chose the first thing.
That's interesting because later that day, that was like my last day at Hopkins. So my boss, he took me out to dinner. And so I asked him the same question. I was like, well, what'd you do? And he said, I would do nothing, because if that is the course of, all the random chaos in the world,
Right.
and that is the situation, that's just kind of natural selection.
Right.
And that is just what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not my perspective, but it's like you involving yourself into the situation, then that kind of like changes the trajectory of like just life. So I don't know. It was a scary thought that people had different opinions, but yeah, that's just the nature of the business, I guess.
There's a phrase, and it's that most problems stem from action. So like,
Yeah.
and you really think into that. It's like, yeah, the majority of the problems out there stemmed from action. And I talked to Bizwaz about that actually, and it's just interesting, maybe if like not implying any resistance can actually turn a better outcome sometimes in some situations.
Yeah. But I also think on the flip side, and I think, this might be everyone's counter argument, it's just like inaction, like what does that do? And so you think about like all the times like we did take action in the course of our society in the world history, and like if we didn't do that thing, like where would we be? So yeah, I think it's really hard to say, but I think we're definitely on this like course of action where like artificial intelligence will probably be our future. So yeah.
How important do you feel going to grad school and the next step of education was for your professional development?
Yeah, then that's a great question. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of academics now, probably not so much at Spring Hill. I mean, like, again, like I loved all my teachers. I love my courses, but I feel like I was like just enthralled with like the opportunity here. But then, grad school is just something different. And obviously I perspective from 2 different grad programs, with your MBA, it's all about teamwork and people and understanding like how could you motivate, your team to put the best product across the board, with all these different people competing against you. And so that was tough because at Spring Hill, like obviously it's you have some teamwork, but like at this level, it's people that have professional experience and the concepts are a little bit more real world. And so that was the challenging part. It was like leading a team,
Right.
Yeah.
For a student like me, I feel we had similar Spring Hill times with learning and education not being the forefront.
Yeah.
And I mean, I really appreciate it, and it's a phenomenal experience. But I feel like I just learned better outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend still pursuing an MBA if possible, or just getting my hands dirty in a certain industry?
See, I guess, and that's always going to be like maybe the counter argument to academics in general is like, maybe the focus on theory. And I see that a lot in computer science that like we're really studying like, the possibilities of what could happen. And this was founded in like years ago. But then, like I said, I'm studying reinforcement algorithms of like how do like robots interact in the world. I understand the equation. Could I go build the robot? No. You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things like, yes, I mean, I do feel confident walking in the room and talking about these subjects, but like ask me to do it. I think I'm gonna need some years of experience. Would have been better to start when I was younger and just like do exactly what you're saying, get your hands dirty. Absolutely. I think experience is the best teacher. So
Okay.
I just happened to be in the opportunity where like, I was just interested and it's just kind of like something I'm pursuing. So
You said you can't build a robot, but can you talk about what you've learned?
yeah, of course. Kind of like with AI in the class I'm studying, it's all about like teaching the robot to learn for itself, and so basically the idea is like you build a reward system. So like, okay, if you, go and knock this trash can over and the trash spills, like that's negative 100 points. So it's all about like transition states. So like you're in one state where like, hey, just keep walking forward and don't walk off this path because if you do, you get minus points. So it's like kind of just building games. And so over time, the robot understands like, okay, if I keep going forward and if I get to the end of the road, I've accomplished my goal. And so you can see why that's scary, maybe like where the future of AI goes. Cause like, what if there's this good example, of AI like has to make just a ton of paper clips and eventually like it runs out of stuff to make paper clips with. It's like, well, I could, the humans are in my way of making paper clips because they're using the resources for something else. Oh, I got to take out humans to accomplish my goal. So it's the idea of like learning to accomplish a goal, but setting the right parameters where it's not like out of control. Like that's the idea there,
Right.
So hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. But so, for instance, the reward system with the dog, they go fetch and good boy treat. What is the reward indicators for a robot?
Yeah, I mean, what can you make a robot happy? And it's just like kind of, the way we did it in our class, was a simple example because we're really studying mazes and we're like focusing on Pac-Man. So I think it depends on like what the world state is, like what do you want to accomplish? Like, so in those examples, it was like, okay, at the end of the maze, you get the pellet or like, don't die by the go. So you have to specify like, oh, the robots are designed to accomplish a goal. So like what world is it operating in? What does it need to accomplish? So whatever it needs to accomplish, that's going to be your end reward. That's kind of like at least what we learned, which makes sense, you know. So
that's similar to when you're asking AI questions on specifications. Is there any? Do you use AI for that type of stuff?
Yeah, of course. And I think with those, it's like, okay, how can I? You don't want to overload the model because it's essentially what you're doing with ChatGPT is you're querying right from the server and it's going and finding the answer. So you can't. It wants to answer your question and as less queries as possible because I'm sure it'll get a negative reward if it's not accomplishing your goal and overloading the server and then ChatGPT crashes or something like that. So Yes, I love ChatGPT. I'm a huge fan of it because I feel like if you don't use it, you're going to be left behind. Mostly because like you can just automate and make so much things easier. And I've learned so much just like asking it detailed questions or like, hey, explain this to me as if I'm a 10-year-old and like I had to explain this to somebody else. And so having that process given to me on a silver platter, why would you not? So
With the silver platter, I mean, like, imagine our generation is kind of in the middle. So we started to do the creative thinking when our minds are still developing and growing. But imagine the youth, like the 5 and 10-year-olds now, when they're getting in middle school and stuff, and they figure out what AI is, and they can just, instead of homework and thinking through things, plug it in.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because, I think with my program, I has been very fortunate to like, kind of work with different tutors and people that are like way beyond me and just like in their field of academics and really masters of like, economics or whatever it is. And so I just kind of look at them in awe because, I think you can fall in a trap where like you do just plug everything in and whatever.
Right.
But at some point you're going to have this false sense of identity that like, it wasn't really me this whole time. I'm not, and you're going to have to show up to a real life test and be like, hey, I don't know how to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this idea of like passive and active learning. So when you're reading something or you're copying and pasting or you're watching a video, you're doing passive learning. And really to like learn something and actually like have it stuck to memory, you have to actively write it out, actively work through the problem. And I think that just distinction between like actual learning is up to the person if they want to, actually master the subject. So that's the danger. I mean, obviously you can get the grades if you want, but at some point
You'll be tested.
And the best way to do that, active learning. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
The business club, SHC.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's you. You started that?
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite Spring Hill stories because it actually starts from like a place of just like an all-time low at this campus. Like I mentioned, I had the best time here, but I was a junior class president. I was like groomed, ready to, take on the school presidency. I spent that whole summer just like, figuring out my board. I was really working out a lot. I was like focusing on like my points on the things that I wanted to do. And yeah, it just didn't fall my way. I ended up losing the election to someone I really thought dearly. I mean, our debate, kind of was just like, I think she's great. And then she said, I think he's great. So it was just like not really a debate. We were just complimenting each other. So I wasn't so much upset about losing to her. It was more of just like losing my purpose. And at the same time, this is when we had like, midterm papers. And so I think for marketing, and I'll probably butcher, what the subject was about, but it was just like developing a marketing plan, for a product. And so after all my time in student government, I realized how many clubs there were and all the great things that they're doing for the community. And I was really jealous of like the chemistry club and like they had the crawfish boil. I was like, why doesn't the business club have something like this? So it was, I don't know, like, some long weekend we had a break. I didn't go home and I just stayed in Mobile Hall with one of my buddies. We watched some movies and I just like cranked out this like 12, 15-page paper on like what the business club could be, what it is, and what the value would bring and how I'd market it to the campus. And yeah, the next week we had to give our presentations. I submitted the paper, got dressed up in a suit, and I gave my whole thing. Got a little bit of pushback, as I mentioned, just because there's another business club, but that's purely based on like academic standing. You have to have like 3.5.
It was a fraternity, or still is.
Yeah, something like that, which again, didn't focus on school as much, so I didn't think I fit that criteria, but I still wanted to participate. And I felt like, the business teachings of just like, finance and economics applies to like every major at this school. So I was like, I would want to open it up to everybody who's not just pre-med, but also like if they're interested in opening their own practice, what does that look like? So that was my pitch, and I kind of just left it there. And then Miss Lariviere, just kind of saw the opportunity, took it, ran with it, and she's made it what it is today. I mean, all credit to her. I just like wrote the paper and, but yeah, I mean, we did the spring fling and I went and negotiated for, the food trucks and to pay my buddy Ben who performed at the concert. And yeah, so I'm glad to see that still going on.
Ben Spotswood?
Yeah, Ben Spotswood. Exactly.
He's he's a great guy. I talked to him early on in the podcast venture because he had one at one time too, right?
Yeah, the Rosebud experience. Yeah, I actually I did an episode with him and watched him grow through that and kind of learn, what it took to interview and become a good conversationalist. But yeah, one of my best friends, and so I'm really happy. And I think why we kind of stayed in touch for so long is because we had like a lot of similar interests as far as just entrepreneurship and stuff like you're doing. So it's really happy to see that there's more people in Spring Hill like doing stuff like you. So
thank you.
yeah.
For the entrepreneurship you have, is that do you plan to find a way to connect your marketing experience with data analytics?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have had a couple projects that just like did not go well and they completely failed. And at the time,
what kind of projects?
Yeah, so actually while I was at Spring Hill, I was working with a friend back home to build a social networking app. And so I spent 2 years doing that. The beta, test came out and the app completely crashed. And just after, some capital invested, I realized like, I don't think I know enough about the business plan and enough about this project to really make it succeed. And so that was a tough pill to swallow. That being said, when I look back on my experiences, I couldn't be more proud because like you fail, you learn more. Another project I did during grad school was I was like really obsessed with I'm still in a baseball league right now and I get very sore. So I was like, I would love like an exercise recovery tool that like just had all of like the best products on the market just into one package.
What type of products do you use for recovery?
Foam rolling, just like, just the little tennis ball, just like the stick.
Yeah.
So basically I wrote this, drew this concept out where basically all those things were combined and you could smush them together and you could, carry them very easily. And then I worked with an engineering firm in Georgia for a little bit over a year, developed a, prototype. And yeah, so I eventually I think I'll, work on getting that patent. But I think just the failure there was not understanding like, okay, what does it take? What does it cost to like have like a full operations business of just like, economies of scale? Like you need at least like 100,000 orders like for this to be profitable. I was like, I just love the idea. So I think, me taking a break from my entrepreneurship was really understanding like, wow, I have a lot to learn about life and just things. And, I really need to master a subject. So it'll probably be in the analytics realm. But yeah, those were great experiences and failures that, I've taken with me every day.
Do you think it's a great opportunity to work in big companies and see how they do things and learn from experienced people to eventually take that of something your own?
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, I feel like, definitely I worked for smaller companies and I guess like, the trade-off is you get to wear a lot of hats and you get to try a lot of things. But the, downside is like everyone's kind of stuck in their ways or like, hey, we always do this way. So when you go to a large company like, Johns Hopkins or Guidehouse, you get to just see just the enormous entity and all of the different resources that they have. And they just want you to become better. So they like pay for your education. They make sure that like you have an opportunity to spend time with mentors and they have somebody that's doing your job, probably better than you at like a different department. So like that access, you can't put a price on. But yeah, eventually, really, I would love to be my own business owner. And yeah, so I think exactly right. Go to the big place, go find yourself somewhere else. So
I agree too. And
yeah.
I hope to follow a similar course. My major is entrepreneurship. And
oh, cool.
I'll tell someone that like, oh, you're going to start a business, you're going to start a company.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day, yeah. But if like starting off, it's crucial to get somewhere that can give you a 401k starting and, benefits instead of gambling for.
Yeah. Well, I think it too. I think about the scale of like what you want your business to be. Like, I'm sure I could have done something like on a smaller scale and like, whatever. But, with the app and with this product I was trying to do, I was like really trying to bust out the gate, like with a large idea. And I realized for that kind of scale, you need to understand people, you need to have a team, and you need to be able to make decisions. But, if you're an entrepreneur, you're starting out, being a little bit good at everything kind of helps you get the right people in place. Because I think having that starting team is the most important part of success there.
100%.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to students looking back, like in my position?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that like when I left Spring Hill, I thought I was a hot shot. You know, I obviously did so much here. I accomplished so much. And I was like, man, if this is what life is after high school, I'm going to crush it. The hardest pill to swallow is, you know, I had an interview and they asked me like, what can you do? This was, you know, shortly after college. And I was like, what do you mean? I got my degree. Like I'm here. And they're like, you don't have any skills. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can't do anything. And I remember just like sitting in a park bench, just completely flabbergasted. I was just like, man, I don't know anything. So that was the biggest like shock. And I think that just realizing that like, this is only the beginning of like learning how life works and just beginning your chapter, but also that segues into my advice, like, put yourself in uncomfortable situations and believe in yourself and believe that you belong. Because I think those three pieces like helped me like, okay, like, you know, maybe these people have more experience or, you know, maybe they're a little bit smarter than I am, but like, I'll find a way to like belong here. And I think that biggest thing has catapulted me into every situation where eventually I like find out how to do all the great things I did at Spring Hill, like in that situation. Cause you just got to jump, you know, a leap of faith. So that's my biggest advice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep that with me for sure.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm so glad we're able to cross paths yesterday.
Yeah, man, what an opportunity. I was low key. I was just like, hey, maybe he'll ask me to be on the pod. I mean, how cool would that be? So yeah.
Well, right when I was coming up with this, interviewing alumni, Miss L was like, "Oh, Trevor."
Yeah.
I was like, who? It's like the guy that started the business club, and then she took me through all the pictures.
Oh yeah.
Of the years and some flashbacks of the first spring fling.
Oh yeah.
So it's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, you know, to see what you're doing. And yeah, this is an awesome setup here. And yeah, man, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, I feel like I mentioned, I had some projects, I got discouraged, but you got to keep moving forward. And I think after looking at this, seeing how you prepare, I think you'll do just fine, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool, man.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.